Hey folks, Brandon Schaefer here once again. I hope that you've had fun playing around with all the different pencils that you have in your little kit. If you have not yet, I encourage you to try out all the different leads and try to make, an extension of the last video with the sketching basics. Try to make different thicknesses. Just get used to how a pencil moves and how the feeling of it, the textures it creates. Try using it, holding it a different way. That's also very important. Holding it a certain way. Usually, for loose sketching, you don't want to be holding a pencil like this and kind of sketching like that. You want it to be really loose. So your pressure is really light pressure. So be sure to remember that. You want really light pressure when you're holding it. Kind of hold it back a little farther. You can even hold it, like this. Kind of a different way to do it. Try out some different things and practice and see what works best. Like I was saying, put the pencil on its edge and, try to make different marks. Create some interesting shapes and just play around with the pencil. So in this video, it's going to be about breaking down any kind of picture or scene that you see. If you're drawing what's outside your door, let's say you have an image of some mountains and some trees and a house, etc. All of reality is just different shapes. They can kind of be broken down quite simply into the four basic shapes. I mean, everybody knows these. A square or a rectangle, circle, triangles, excuse me there. You get the point. And then there's just putting all these together. And also, none of them are really 2D like this. They're all usually, in reality we find them as cubes, like this, and then triangular prisms and things. So by simplifying everything and by seeing just a scene outside, let's say this is outside and you have, trees and whatnot, whatever the landscape is, mountains in the distance, which are just soft triangles, horizon line, trees, etc. Just break all these down into basic shapes like I'm doing. So to get something very basic, trunks, it's all like this. It's just very basic. So play around with this and get used to the pencil and just do very basic shapes, because that's what everything is. Everything is broken down into just basic shapes. Now later on in other videos, we're going to get into perspective and what makes it look real. But in this one, I just want you to get down how to simplify shapes, and really this goes hand in hand with painting. It's simplifying, it's massing out shapes. Also, start trying to not only fill in shapes, so not only to just make the outlines or basic shapes, but to start giving them some value. So we know the sky is going to be the lightest thing. So try some different shading techniques. And these are just thumbnails. It's just really simple sketching. Trying to plan out ideas or just drawing from life what you see. That's the idea, is to plan things out and start putting down some value. In later videos, I'm going to go over how to shade, how to do all this stuff. But for now, just get the simple concept of massing out shapes like this. You can see there's a definite value change, between everything. So that's kind of reality there. That's what makes things look realistic. If that's what you're looking for, is different values, different variety of forms, shape, So even breaking down, I mean, let's get down to it. One of the best things you can do is try to just draw your hand. I filled up an entire sketchbook. I have it laying around here somewhere, but just different, I'd look at my hand this way and I would just sit there and draw it. Or I'd draw my finger like this. I would, do all different kinds of angles and all different kinds of movement. And I filled up the whole sketchbook of just hands. So, but breaking down a hand, what is a hand? These are just cylinders. That was the other shape up here that I didn't draw in, it's just a cylinder. So there's two ovals and then connectors. And that's what these fingers are. Everything, you just break it down into really basic shapes. Ovals and then, cylinders. And I'll show you real quick here. The hand, it's very basic shapes, just different, squares, circles. So you have knuckles here, 4 different knuckles. And then that's the beginning of the cylinders. So you have these different shapes that connect the fingers. So, it's basic stuff. But the best way to do it is to draw from life. Draw what you're actually looking at. And start learning to see. That's one of the most important things, is learning to see. But you have to learn what to see first. You have to learn that everything is just simple shapes, a big square, maybe, and then you start, once you get down the basic shapes here, you start modifying here and there. Maybe it wasn't a complete perfect circle, there was little things sticking out. It's not exactly you start out with a square here, but there's also this other shape here. So you kind of have to modify and just add other shapes, curvature there, etc. So all these things, but you have to learn the basics. You have to learn the rules before you can break them. And these are the rules, the simple rules to drawing and to drawing from life, is that everything is broken down, breaking things down into a simple form. So just think of that when you look at anything. And that's some of the exercises. Some of the exercises you should do. If you're drawing a chair, just real loose and real quick, just break down the shape of a chair. The legs are just rectangles. Just try to block it in. Get all the shapes down. And there's your quick, simple chair, and then you just start refining. Sketches don't have to be perfect. They're not going to be perfect first time around. You may have to start over 3 or 4 different times. But the point is to just capture what you're seeing. There's not much more to say about that. So once you start simplifying the shapes, just start blocking in the value tones that you see. And usually squinting helps to simplify. Maybe back here all this is in shadow, the really dark shadow. You have the shadow going back this way for the chair, whatever. But then all this is in light, so it's going to be shadow here, and shadow here, but all the light's coming from over here. Sorry you can't really see it that much, but see, just start breaking it down and then just slowly, with light pressure, filling it in. So anyway, I can't really zoom in on that area. So, but you get the idea. So start blocking things in. Whatever you see in nature, start blocking it in. I would suggest just start drawing from life, doing as much as you can. Draw your hands, draw your feet, draw tables, chairs, etc. Draw everything. Break it down into the simple shapes. And then one thing that can help is to, let's say you're doing, I'll show you something simple just to keep it really simple. Like if you're doing something that's a sphere. So, well, that's not really sketching, huh? I'm just doing it for, so let's say we have the sphere. Now, you want to show the roundness of it. Now, how do you do that? Well, one thing is try to imagine it being 3D. So there's a back and a front. So imagine this wireframe around it. So this is the back of it, this is the front. And really there's a wireframe, all the way around it. And even going this way, there's wireframe. I know it's kind of messy. Just try to imagine it like this, like it dipping out, coming back in. So this part is actually closest to you. And then as it gets farther out, it's kind of like perspective. It's a little harder to understand, but it's kind of simple. Just wireframe, so try to think of it that way. And when we get into shading, I'll show you some things you can do. So let's say you have a sphere here, and to kind of shade it, you follow the motion, the curvature. You follow the curvature of the sphere. And that makes it look more realistic for shading. If you're shading the sphere, you don't want to shade with lines like this, really. Just straight up and down. I mean, you can. It just depends. But you want to follow the curvature of it. If you just make your line straight across like that, it's not gonna look like it's real. So we'll get into cross hatching and things where you just make lines like this, following the curvature. And that's what can make it look realistic. And then have them curving this way. But I just want you to understand the concept of simplifying shapes, simplifying a hand. What is a hand? Yeah, it's fingers, but what is break down the finger structure. Break it down into cylinders, rectangles, etc. And that's all it is. See, how quickly you can get a hand shape. Yeah, it may not be perfect, but you go back and refine it. That's what it's all about. Going back, refining things, and getting it down. So anyway, I hope this video was somewhat helpful. The next videos are going to be great. I'm really looking forward to making them. They're going to cover, all the different points of perspective, shading, techniques, using all these materials. I just have to get past the basics here so that everyone's on the same page, everyone knows, has some things to be practicing. And really the most important thing is just drawing from life. Draw whatever you're interested in. If you want to be an animal, portrait artist or an animal artist, just draw animals all the time. And with a face or something like that, let's go over that real quickly. A face is simple. It's just, usually you start out with a circle. Say it's like an animal face, maybe like a 2/3 view or something, it's looking to the side. If it's a dog, the head's here and then you have the ears, or maybe it's a cat. Ears are triangles, the snout, comes out a little bit on a cat. Just break these things down. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not drawing from life here, so, it's hard to do it. But it's all can be broken down very simply. Especially if you're doing a side view, like a dog or something. The snout comes out, maybe not that long, but snout comes out, the head's here and then has ears up here, neck. It's just practicing, getting the proportions down, and using either a photo reference or drawing from life. That's the most important thing. And then, you'll start getting used to, you'll be able to, when you draw enough hands, you'll be able to draw a hand no problem. So practice, play with your pencils, and see what you can come up with, see what you can create, and have fun. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one. Like and subscribe if you wish to see more. I'd appreciate it. And Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. Peace.